Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners and viewers from coast to coast, the Gulf to Canada, and around the globe on the Right Side Radio. And for you viewers, the Cowboys Take. Reed Lance Rosenthal, the Cowboys Take. And I'm going to recommend Rumble. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Well, obviously, we have news kind of pouring like a gusher, a geyser, a 100x Old Faithful of news and, should we say, manipulations, distortions, misinformation, disinformation, and, I'll be kind, lack of transparency. So I'm going to focus this show on the attempt on Trump. And this is going to be update number 3. For you radio listeners, you heard the first show last week over your AM channel. I also posted an update 2 days later just because of all the information, really like eye-popping information coming out. And I posted more videos, more articles, more expert opinions, etc. on the new heading we have put on this special page we've set up, the Trump attempt page, divided into all sorts of sections. The section that we added is gee, I wonder how we come to this conclusion, right? The plot and the cover-up. Because in those updates, I pretty much told my video viewers, I didn't get to it in the radio show. It was 2 days before. News was still coming out. I don't like to get over my skis, although I'm not bashful about giving you my opinion. A la COVID, a la Wuhan, a la Fauci, a la Russian hoax, a la Hillary Clinton, a la, and I can go on down the list, Barack Obama and the shadow government, the czars, his whole plan, the Cloward and Piven theory, which the Democrats are invoking. That's all relevant news, but that's past news. Right now, I'm going to focus, and we may get into some economic rat-a-tat-tat because, boy, the lies on that side of the on the economic pile of manure that's coming from the government continue to stack up like a big, steamy, smelly pile of caca. We may get to that, we may not. You radio listeners, we probably won't. You video listeners, I'll try and bring it to you maybe in one of the updates, which will happen, I'm sure, 24 to 48 to 72 hours after this one. They're all labeled, Update 1, Update 2, Update 3. With each one are the new videos, the new expert witnesses, the new information that's coming out, etc. And as always, we're going to have kind of the rest of the story. But I'm going to give you a hint as to what that is. So over the past few days, the House held a hearing and grilled, at that time, the director of the Secret Service, Ms. Cheadle. And the grilling was immense. And all those videos, well, at least 6 of the grillings, are posted for you under the plot and the cover-up. And then the House grilled Director Wray of the FBI. Oh, well, isn't he a friend of America and Americans? And other things are going on also. I want to point out that I told you that Cheadle was the sacrificial lamb. She was the patsy, okay? Just like the shooter on the roof that wasn't covered. The shooter on the roof is the patsy for the real assassins here and the real plan behind the assassins, which we'll get into in more detail in this show. It is inescapable, it is conclusive. What we don't know is how many shooters there were. Was there another single shooter? Another 2 shooters? There's all sorts of audio forensics which are out right now. I have that also on the Trump attempt page. Anyway, let's cut to the chase, okay? Ron Johnson gave an interview to Fox News, and they have started an investigation, bipartisan, I might add, in his committee in the Senate. And he can't get amazing, the FBI or the Secret Service to talk to him. But the local guys, the local police and the state police are talking to him, and it's really quite interesting. Quite interesting. As was the testimony, quote unquote, the obfuscation of Cheadle right before she resigned. And Cheadle is a sacrificial lamb. Let me repeat that. I told you from day one, this was Mayorkas. Mayorkas heads DHS. Mayorkas is her boss. Mayorkas is the one, if you go back into the news accounts, who denied the request for additional Secret Service help, technical assistance, etc. And then, by the way, as he does on the border, he really is like one of the world's best liars, second only maybe to his best bud, Barry Obama. And it is Barry Obama and Mayorkas, as I look at this, who dusted off the JFK assassination handbook in Dallas in 1963. For those of you who didn't hear the updates, I'll cut to the chase. That building that this 20-year-old kid who was allowed to get to the building, who was allowed 17 minutes to set up to take the shot, or to take the shots, 3, it appears, I might add, out of 8, 3 out of 8, that's what he shot. He's Lee Harvey Oswald in this modern day escapade. That building is the book depository in this modern day escapade. Somewhere out further, and listen to these audio studies that they've done, forensic audio studies. They can tell you how far the bullet came from. There seems to be 3 different distances. Very interesting. So far, the actual shooter for the Secret Service, who supposedly took out this kid, crickets. And Ms. Cheadle in the hearing didn't want to kind of divulge any information about that. Now, this is surmise, okay? This is just a hunch. This is just looking back at what they did with JFK and seeing it repeated here. He wasn't taken out. That kid was not taken out by a Secret Service sniper. He was taken out by one of his team, which he didn't even know existed, just like Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas. Okay, there was a Jack Ruby somewhere out there on the water tower, on the gym roof 487 yards away, which is closed on Saturdays. Anyway, now that I've given away part of my rest of the story, let's do the founder's quote for you, and I think this is a really good one for the treason, and it really is. This is out and out treason, murder, attempted murder, and probably a host of other felonies by these people, by the accomplices, by the, shall we say, the assassination team, the plan, the plot, and the cover-up. It's a good thing they're not too good at the cover-up on this one. They forgot about cell phones and videos and audio forensics and all sorts of that stuff. That didn't exist back then for poor JFK. The quote, okay, this is none other than Alexander Hamilton, who was kind of a firebrand back then. Quote, if it be asked, what is the most sacred duty and the greatest source of our security in a republic? The answer would be an inviolable respect for the Constitution and laws, unquote. The treason we are dealing with, folks, and the people who have perpetrated these treasons, and look, the planned assassination attempt is just, it's huge, but it's part of an iceberg. It's just a piece of an iceberg of treason, including the border. Oh, Mayorkas again, and Obama again, and we're going to fundamentally change the United States of America. Okay, cool. Let me just bring you up to speed on this update 3, right after the rant story. In the rant story, let's bring a little smiley face, little levity to this. Gee, I must have gotten COVID from Biden. That's a whole nother deal. that we're going to talk about really briefly in this show. So, our ranch lieutenant, who is a great guy, really funny, and a friend, in addition to being an integral part of our operations out here, told us 3 days ago that he was leaving. In fact, he is so upset over the attempted assassination and all the nonsense with Biden, all part of the pre-planning, and everything else going on in this country, he is actually leaving the country. I'm not going to tell you where he's going, but it's far away, and it ain't a U.S. territory. Very interesting. Been here for 7 years, the longest he's ever worked any one place ever in his life, which is by far, I might add, which is a big compliment. And we are very sorry to see him go. But I got right on the horn. There are some sites which deal just with kind of ranch and farm related positions. I talked to several people, actually a number of people. And why don't we just say, I'll be kind, I was like totally unimpressed. And then I talked to this one guy, former vet, is familiar with mechanics, familiar with ranching, wants to live out in the middle of nowhere, etc. He's kind of a younger twin to the current lieutenant. And we hit it off, and he's on his way up here in about 2 weeks. So my point is, or should we say the moral of this ranch story is, sometimes something that is upsetting and unexpected leads to something that is an opportunity and gives you an expanded, should we say, sequence, an expanded level of operations, an expanded level of things you can organize and do. And the other moral of this particular ranch story is that people should not hesitate, right? When something happens, there's usually, sometimes you have to think about it. Sometimes you have to kind of move the chess pieces to see what this or that will do to the other guy's queen or your pawn or whatever. And I'm using that as an analogy, obviously, a metaphor. But sometimes you have to move like lightning. So this whole situation was resolved in 48 hours. It could have taken months, which would have been not good for the ranch. But everything clicked, which brings us to the third moral of this ranch story, which is every once in a while, this serendipity. Send energies out into the universe, and the universe will respond. Okay, let me bring you up to speed on, well, as much as I can, on this nonsense, this crapola, which is bubbling out like a geyser of treasonous caca. So many of the things that I told you are now being confirmed, okay, on the Right Side Radio and now the Cowboys Take on the video channels. It seems to happen that way, like 99 times out of 100. I want you to remember that when Mayorkas was being impeached by the House, I believe there were 3 or maybe 4 rhinos that voted against the impeachment. Those Republicans allowed this man to plan and coordinate an attempted assassination of the United States in concert with co-conspirators, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. You had plenty to impeach him just for his treasonous and illegal activities on the border. Now you can see what happened with your inaction, the 3 or 4 of you. And if they happen to be your representatives, may I suggest you give them holy hell. All right. And how will we bring this guy to account? Well, we shall see. He's slippery as an eel. All right, so we now found out, we were told by Cheadle that there was a second-story window in which local snipers, et cetera, and some of the local security detail, right behind, we'll call it the book depository building, that Lee Harvey Oswald, oh, I'm sorry, the Crooks kid was on. And it seems that this window had an unobstructed view of the roof. And it seems that they have a picture of this kid on the roof 17 minutes before he fired his first shot. Cheadle testified that the Secret Service snipers, when she was questioned, was there a stand-down order, have full authority. She didn't answer the question. Instead, she diverted. She said, Secret Service agents, the sniper teams have full authority, as I told you in a previous show, to take out a perceived threat. She admitted, as I've already brought to you, that he was classified as a threat somewhere between 17 and 24 minutes before he pulled the trigger of the 3 shots that came from him. It seems that the audible forensics that they've done, there are 3 shots which follow his, which seem muffled. One audio forensics guy thought it was probably echoes between buildings, but there's another outfit that's done a pretty thorough analysis, and they believe it was muffled because it was fired from inside a room. Second story, inside a room, okay. And then they have pictures of an open window in this second story, which, by the way, the next day was closed. Now, I'm not connecting any dots here for you. I'm just telling you what the photography, what the videos say, and what the experts are surmising or concluding. There seems to have been a repositioning of Crook's body. All the mainstream media, they wouldn't be in cahoots with the government, would they? They wouldn't be in a plot like the Russian hoax. Yeah, the Ukraine bribery, whatever, with Trump, the J6. They would never do that. But they're all running a story showing the shooters, I'm saying the shooter, one of the shooter's bodies, it happens to be supposedly Crook's. On the extreme left-hand side of the book depository building, as I'm going to refer to it from here on in, when in fact the videos show him much, much further, 50 to 60 feet, to quote them, to the right. This is really important because if he is to the left of the building, he lines up perfectly with that open window. In other words, the cover and the distraction, right? I find all this just horrifyingly fascinating. And it pisses me off, let me tell you. It pisses me off. And then there's the gal in black. I told you, and she was actually in white. I went back and looked at the video like 5 more times. Right behind Trump. On the website, we have a tremendous video of 2 really expert people in body language that reviewed just her actions and one other guy that was behind Trump. It's fascinating. You really need to watch that video because some way, somehow, this gal was tied into this plot and she knew of it. You watch her. You even watch her do a kind of a half smile when the first shot comes out. You watch her gaze up toward the book depository building prior to any shots coming out. You watch her bring her cell phone. She had the cell phone ready. It was already on record. Literally, right before or right contemporaneously with the first shot, the cell phone was out. She barely ducks. She wasn't surprised. You got to watch the video. They can tell you whatever you want, but your eyes ain't lying to you, folks. To find out who she is might be really interesting. There's been conjecture, and some people have said they've identified her as an undercover FBI agent. I don't know. That's just what some other people are saying. But in some way, shape, or form, she played a role in this, even if it was just to do the close-up recording of what they hoped would be a dead presidential candidate and former president. And then CNN, think about this. CNN never live streams Trump rallies, right? They don't want to give him the publicity. When's the last time CNN live streamed a Trump rally? Well, CNN was there live streaming on this particular occasion. Now, who was it when the secret SWAT team raid of of Roger Stone's place took place. Oh, yeah, that's right. It was CNN. And who was there with the secret Mar-a-Lago raid, when the FBI stormed in fully armed with blessings to shoot, by the way, blessings to shoot. Who was there? Oh, that's right. It was CNN. And why was CNN at this event? Let's all scratch our heads and think about what the possibilities could be. Or we just, who knows, right? I mean, it's just one of those coincidences. And then the Austin hedge fund. I told you about this in the previous videos. You don't think this is a massive deep state conspiracy spread out over a number of agencies and treasonous people? So that hedge fund in Austin, who took short positions the day before the assassination on all of Trump's companies, and now we find also on Rumble, who, by the way, would collapse if Trump's companies collapsed. Think about this. They took a short position on Rumble also, and it was for 12 million shares at roughly $36.40 and change. Doesn't matter, it's $1 billion plus. They lost their ass, isn't that great? There is some poetic justice in the world. But on Monday, I personally checked these sites. Personally checked them. I mean, I didn't know anything about this, and I checked that SEC site to see if there were any shorts on anything suspicious. Okay? Let me tell you, on Monday, the hedge fund out of Austin, tied to BlackRock, very important fact. The hedge fund out of Austin said, oh, that was just an error. It was an incomplete form, and we've corrected it. Folks, this IO form, you don't correct the form. I mean, this is a big deal. This is a public disclosure by fiduciaries. You don't correct it. But on Monday, right, that is yesterday, I'm recording part of this on Tuesday and part of it on Wednesday for you, released on Thursday. The video will be released on Wednesday, the radio show on Friday. On Monday, that filing didn't show 12 million shares. It showed 1,200 shares. Well, how convenient is that? Everybody just leaves off like 4 zeros when they're spending $1 billion making a transaction, don't you think? I mean, it's so easy to do. We have so much paperwork, and, I had a twitch in my finger and I just hit the zero too many times. Yeah. Okay. Whatever you say. Which, by the way, kind of ties in with a comment that's now come to light by Larry Fink. Perfect name for him. The head of BlackRock. And Larry Fink said about 3 weeks ago that for people to change, they need to be forced to change. Really. And that was about 3 weeks after our buddy Klaus Schwab at the WEF said that people who don't conform to the globalist thought process, shall we say, the globalist goals for 2030 and 2035 and 2050 and smart cities and yada, 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 they need to knuckle under and be persuaded. Oh, really? Does this seem to be a common theme, do you think? Common theme emerging. We're going to talk more about that. So let's talk about, shall we say, CrowdStrike. The folks that caused the outage over 2/3 of the globe for internet a week ago Friday. 6 days after the assassination attempt. Don't think all this isn't tied in, particularly when I tell you the rest of the story on CrowdStrike, because their affiliations are somewhat suspect, shall we say, particularly with some of the quotes I've given you from Larry Fink and Klaus Schwab at the WEF. So let's talk about CrowdStrike and the outage and what it means, because it wasn't an accident. The other people involved with CrowdStrike are the Clintons. This is all coming out. And did you know that CrowdStrike is a WEF, World Economic Forum, member, and that our buddy Mr. Fink, the head of BlackRock, associated with CrowdStrike. So one of their largest shareholders is BlackRock. The head of BlackRock is Mr. Fink, whom we've been speaking lovingly about here the last few minutes. On their board is the Clintons. They are a WEF member. Mr. Fink happens to be, I didn't know this before, but he is on the board of trustees of the WEF. And CrowdStrike, the largest block of stock, is owned by a Ukrainian oligarch. This is all pretty interesting stuff. Did you know that CrowdStrike was the one that released and was behind the inception of the Russia hoax? That's right. Did you know that CrowdStrike was the outfit that the FBI hired to investigate the DNC servers? Remember that poor kid that was murdered who worked for the DNC, the emails that were released, all that kind of stuff? Pretty interesting. Did you know that Maricopa County, which is crooked as hell, the epicenter of election fraud in Arizona, they reported that their voting machines basically went offline or were not operating properly during this outage? Wait a minute. I thought voting machines were sacrosanct. Nothing could go wrong. You're just conspiracy theorists. They're not connected to the internet. I wonder why all the voting machines in Maricopa County, Arizona, and I understand there's other areas too, this is the one I know for sure, went on the blink from an internet problem. Pretty interesting. And Mr. Fink, I think I might have already said this, but it bears repeating, just a few weeks ago said, if we're going to change people's behavior, we have to force them to change their behavior. Okay, very good. The head of security, a guy by the name of Dean Shane, I may have his last name wrong, his first name is Dean. The head of security, right, the guy that was supposed to protect against all this, he happened to sell 4,000 shares. It's $100,000. It's not like Nancy Pelosi selling shares in advance of a bill, but it's a significant chunk of money and a chunk of stock. He happened to sell 4,000 shares of CrowdStrike on Wednesday. That is 48 hours before this problem that they certainly didn't mean, that they didn't anticipate, and that was just this one little line of code. We're so sorry. Must be just a coincidence. Kind of like that Austin hedge fund, shorting Rumble and Trump stocks on Friday. Anyway, you have the Trump assassination attempt, the plot, on Saturday the 10th. On Friday the 16th, you have this global outage that still isn't completely resolved as of the time of me broadcasting this show. And basically the world is kind of on its butt, internet-wise, for over a day and a half, including a business day. And then you have Biden bowing out of the race. And then you have Kamala magically getting the approval of enough delegates to be the presidential nominee. And then you have Obama supposedly not endorsing Kamala. But you have Nancy Pelosi, Obama's closest nasty ally up there, enthusiastically endorsing Kamala. Do you think we're getting, do you think there's a little whitewash going on here, or blackwash, or whatever you want to call it? This was all planned. Biden stepping out was planned. They just thought they'd be doing it with Donald Trump dead. That's exactly what they thought. And that is exactly what they planned. All right. Elon Musk. He's talking about a bill, but I think this goes into, this kind of encompasses everything I'm talking about right here. He was talking about the SAVE Act bill, which 198 Democrats, this will tell you a lot about the Democrats. 198 Democrats voted against it. This is the one that basically says this is what you have to do to make sure illegal aliens don't vote in the United States federal elections. Elon Musk tweeted, and this is on the website, quote, those who oppose this, that's the SAVE Act, are traitors. All caps, he typed that. And then in all caps, he has traitors, end quote. And Elon is exactly right. You know, I've been talking about the treason of these people at the top of some of these agencies and in the administration and in the Obama administration, which this is the third term of, for, I don't know, 3 years. Nobody else wanted to use that word. I've now seen that word, thank God, more than I've ever seen it over the last 4 weeks, and with increasing tempo, and now you have Elon Musk coming to the same conclusion that I reached quite a while ago. We'll talk more about that in the future. All right. And I'm not done, unfortunately, folks. I'm not done. I do want to tell you about Project Enbridge too, because there's a lot of stuff happening it's huge. It is absolutely earth-shaking, and it's all being covered up by the assassination attempt, the Biden mess, the Kamala ascendancy, and now the cover-up of the plot that is ongoing, as you will see if you, and I really urge you to watch these hearings. Okay, and then the resignation already pre-planned of Kimberly Cheadle, he, she, as I call her, or she, he, doesn't matter. Kimberly Cheadle, yep, to save Mayorkas' ass and Obama's ass. This was all pre-planned, She did the exact, I want you to think about this. She did the exact same thing that Biden did, right? I'm not resigning, I'm not resigning, I'm not resigning, I'm not resigning, I'm not resigning. Oh, I resign. And Biden was, I'm running, I'm running, I'm running, I'm running, I'm running. I won't step down, I won't step down, I won't step down, I'm running. Oh, okay, I'm stepping down. Please, please. How friggin' stupid do you think we are? Obviously, you think we're really stupid, really stupid. Then we have news coming out. Once again, articles. I'm telling you, this is the best compendium of information on this plot that was foiled only by universal energies, the hand of God, Jesus Christ, Moses. I mean, it doesn't matter. There was a higher force at work. And what's coming out is that Thomas Crooks, they say, remember, they started beating the drums on this Iran wanting to take out Trump thing. They didn't increase the security, but they started beating the drums on that. It was in all the newspapers, all the mainstream media. So, they got kind of a international fall guy for this. And Thomas Crooks, now, according to the feds, and of course we can trust them, he had 3 encrypted overseas bank accounts. Really. This 20-year-old had 3 overseas encrypted bank accounts. I'd like to see all this stuff. I'd like to track every dime that went into or out of those and where it came from. Why do I think it came from maybe a CIA slush fund or maybe the United States Treasury, some, dark little corner of a dark desk drawer? Real easy. Show it to us. This isn't hard. If we're all conspiracy theorists and we're full of crap, just show it to us. And then in the Cheadle interviews, you got to watch them. She admits that the FBI. She says the FBI is doing the study. Okay, the study. Well, it's a study on how to get out of this thing that they've messed up. The FBI is doing the investigation, and she admitted that she had talked to the FBI. And then she admitted that they told her how many shell casings they found on the roof of the depository. In other words, how many shell casings came out of the gun that Lee Harvey Oswald, a la Crooks, was using. Because there should only be 3. And remember that the FBI has the gun. And remember that the FBI, there's video of this. We have it on the site. Hosed off the entire roof, the crime scene. I mean, with a power wash. You can watch the guy up on the roof, hosing the roof off. And by the way, the area of the roof that he's hosing off ain't on the left side of that building when you face it from the podium. It is, as these other folks determined and discovered, way more on the right side of the roof. And that makes a really big difference because then he doesn't line up with that open window. All right. George Conway. Okay. In the meantime, the Democrats are telling people how they're trying to be nice and kind and tone down the rhetoric and, decrease the fire and, unity, unity, unity. Oh, gag me. I mean, on the website under motivation, the motivation section, watch them. Just watch them. This is elected officials, public officials, well-known officials, and everyday useful idiots in the Democratic Party, progressives. I'm not calling you liberals, who unfortunately are still in the Democratic Party. Why don't you get the hell out of it? I'm not calling you useful idiots, but the progressives, yeah, they are no different than the followers of Lenin, and that's what he called them, his followers, useful idiots, way back when, 1917, 1918. So, supposedly, he has these encrypted overseas accounts. All right. Yeah, whatever you say. But he doesn't have any footprint. And everything's been wiped away. And there's really nothing in his phone, the FBI tells us, of course. And Josh Hawley flew out to the site, the senator. He's terrific, by the way. I mean, support this guy. He's a warrior. I love Josh Hawley. He flew out to the site, and he said it was swarming with federal agents, particularly FBI. Like way more federal agents after the attempt than during or before the attempt. Huh. You mean all that limited manpower that Ms. Cheadle and the other feds were talking about, they're available for investigations, but they're not available for protection so that they don't have to do an investigation? I got to think about this for just a moment because, I'm just a hayseed and I can't put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. George Conway, right? This is Kellyanne Conway's husband, who's, wow. I mean, he has DTS, Trump derangement syndrome. He has it bad. He had it injected into his jugular. He goes on TV, and now he has started an outfit called psychopath.org. I'm not kidding. Because Donald Trump, he has all these charts that he holds up and all this crap. Donald Trump, as he says in an insane shrill on the TV, is a psychopath, folks. And then another Democrat comes out and says, oh, he's a Hitler. You don't think that you're stirring up anything out there against Donald Trump? You don't think you're creating any danger for this guy? Where at the same time, Mayorkas, Cheeto was just the fall girl or fall guy, whatever she is. Cheeto was just the fall person. I'll be politically correct. This is all Mayorkas and Obama. So at the same time that they're denying security requests, there were no drones, this has now come out, no drones, no aerial surveillance of that site, but the supposed shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, shooting from the depository building, yeah. He flew a drone over it twice, including one the same day as he supposedly took all those shots. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see what Ray says. We'll have the interview here. How many bullet casings did they find on the roof? They have the weapon, and they could find as many casings as they want. All they have to do is fire the rounds and collect the casings. Huh. How convenient is all this? Anyway, the FBI, when Hawley got there, told him to leave. This was a crime scene. This is a United States senator, right, investigating treason, investigating a plot. And they told him to leave. And of course, much to his credit, he kind of told him to stick it, and he didn't leave. But I find the whole thing, wow. And Miss Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, her hearing was 9 days after the event. She hasn't been to the site yet. As one of the congressional guys who were grilling her, all of whom did a great job, mentioned, the shooter, supposed, right? Lee Harvey Oswald, he visited the site 2 more times than she did. I kind of laughed at that one. It's really quite good and quite accurate. And then we find out, this article's on the website, and you know how they were telling us, the mainstream media, he was bullied. He was just a bullied kid, and he didn't even make the rifle team, and blah 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 blah. Play me a violin. Wrong. He wasn't bullied. He was never on the rifle team. He never tried out for the rifle team. So tell me, how did a kid who's never gone hunting, never been in the military, hasn't been on the rifle team, how does he get good enough to fire those shots? At least 3 of which, if you watch all the stuff that we have up here on the Trump attempt page, and listen, these are experts, this is not me. 3 of them came within 1 inch, one of them within millimeters of Trump's skull. He must be really proficient. And of course, he wasn't nervous at all. He had no adrenaline going. No. This is like an everyday thing. I always climb up on a roof with 10,000 people around me, snipers with their scopes on me, and blah, 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 and shoot at the President of the United States. Yeah, last time I did it was like yesterday. This is old road. Okay, whatever you say. Sorry for the sarcasm, but I just can't. This is just friggin' unbelievable. Anybody who listens to what I'm saying, who listens to what other people are saying, who goes to the Trump attempt page on ontherightsideradio.com, and looks at just a smidgen of what's on there. If you are not appalled, if you are not shocked, and you are not absolutely livid, then wow, I need to know what drugs you're taking so that I can calm down. That's all I can tell you. So I reported to you about the Black Rock video. There was an ad shot at that high school, and this kid happened to be in it. Wow. And this kid happened to be in it in 2022. Well, that's creating all sorts of havoc for Black Rock, particularly as all this other stuff's coming out. Too bad for Black Rock. Oh, their 12.2 trillion in managed assets might go to 12.1 trillion. How is Larry Fink going to feed his cat? The horror of it all. The horror of it all. And did you know that Larry Fink was also on the board of trustees of China's foremost college of economics? Boy, there's a lot of linkage here to China in a lot of ways. Mayorkas, who is a CCP sycophant. Okay, I brought you the story on him years ago before he was confirmed. He still got confirmed. And the quotes of Larry Fink defending ESG and how they were continue to do it and blah, blah, blah. Worth listening to, worth watching. Oh, it has also come out, and this is through Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson, by the way, is a warrior. He's a rock star from Wisconsin. Senator Ron Johnson. Support that guy. This guy is great. This guy is the guy who did more than any other senator to bring the fraud of COVID and the danger and fraud related to, that's now been proven, the COVID jabs to the attention of the American public. He had hearing, the guy is a rock star, okay? He's true, and he's right in the middle of this investigation. His staff is already interviewing local law enforcement officers and getting all sorts of information. Did you know that local law enforcement officers were the first to reach the body of crooks, a la Lee Harvey Oswald, on the roof of the storage building, a la the book depository? And they took pictures of the body. You probably saw it. Well, you can't find it on the web now, but you probably saw it then. And some guy in a suit, listen to Ron Johnson talking about this. Some guy in a suit climbs up the ladder to the roof and goes over to these people and tells them that they need to send those pictures to a certain phone number, which was the ATF. The ATF? What the hell's the ATF doing there? I brought you in the second update what everybody saw. We're talking about more than a dozen witnesses. The guy up in the water tower and the car parked in the woods. The video is on the website with Department of Agriculture plates on it. How many agencies do we have involved in this plot? How deep is the deep state? How widespread are these evil and treasonous tentacles? It's breathtaking, actually. It's breathtaking. And just as I'm wrapping up both this video show and the radio show, folks, which are slightly different, so you radio people, go see the video for the rest, the other goodies, so to speak. An article just came across my screen about the fact that the counter sniper in that window in the second story that I was telling you about, he, quote unquote, apparently left his post. Really? Crooks would have been 50 or 60 feet in front of him. I mean, you could have killed him with a slingshot. That is Lee Harvey Oswald, Crooks, the shooter. And he left his post. That's really odd. All right. We'll get into that in the next update video, shall we? Probably in a day or two. Now let's get into the, I wouldn't call it an interrogation, really. It was pretty modest. It was pretty wound down. Interrogation, though, I will use that word, of Director Wray of the FBI. It's long. It's on the website under, the plot and the cover-up, because it was definitely part of the plot and the cover-up. And I'll let you make your own determinations. But here are the key things that I came away from. First of all, in terms of Wray, a couple of key phrases. I quote, the rangefinder was like somebody who was going to play golf or something. That's a quote. He had a lot of confusion over the timeline in the fire from the counter sniper who purportedly killed the shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, a la Crooks, on the roof of the book depository. Quote, we have a very close relationship with Capitol Police, unquote. Oh, did that play into January 6th? That was an interesting comment. He talked, and he was pretty good, but, he's excellent at kind of dodging these questions and sounding very credible, and he's very good. He's way better than Cheadle. He's way better than most witnesses, maybe because of all the things the FBI has been, unfortunately, involved in during his tenure. And he was quick to point out the things that weren't his fault because it was Comey. That was another thing I got from the interview. So he talked about soft targets being the targets of the terrorists. He acknowledged that they were coming across from the southern border. Being a political animal, he didn't call out DHS or Mayorkas. That they were from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Iran, the Quds Force, Hezbollah, Hamas, and that many of them were able to roam around the United States freely because they had fake documents. I've told you about this with the NGOs and Mayorkas and the DHS giving these people documents, sometimes before they even reach the border, by the way. Remember Mayorkas' flight to Panama? Oh, yeah, terrific. He also, the only thing he was sure of that he answered really quickly without equivocation, which really got my flags flying, was he was asked how many shell casings were on the roof of the depository, where Crooks was. Immediately, no equivocation, which actually he has throughout the deal. He goes, well, we're still investigating, and this may happen and that may happen. We may find out this. This one was not, there was no equivocation. Immediately, without hesitation, he goes, 8. And of course, folks, there has to be 8 shell casings on the roof if the story, if the whole deal is set up like the JFK deal. there has to be 8 shell casings. Just like there had to be 3 shell casings in the book depository open window for Oswald, right? I mean, otherwise the whole story falls apart. He did equivocate on whether or not definitely there was only one shooter. He didn't quite go that far. He kind of covered himself a little bit there. And a really interesting thing was that one of the searches that they found that Oswald, the kid, Crooks, did on a computer was, and this was on July 6th, I believe, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy, unquote. I guess I'm not the only one kind of thinking about the parallels between these events. Interesting. And the other thing that really struck me was that he said that there was no recording of law enforcement communications. Say what? There's no recording of law enforcement communications? When have you ever heard of something like that? I mean, aren't those kind of key? Am I missing something here? The Democrats, by the way, the Republicans did an okay job, not a great job. They did a great job in the Cheeto hearing, but okay in this one. The Democrats were all about obfuscation, redirection, misdirection. They spent a lot of time, all of them, particularly Nadler, who he is just, gag me. They were all political, okay? They didn't care about Trump. One of them still called it an incident, by the way, not an attempted assassination, but an incident. And they talked about gun control, and they talked about ARs, and they talked about semi-automatic rifles and how many more shots this kid got off because, we didn't have the proper gun control laws. And they talked about Project 2025, which, of course, has nothing to do with Trump. It was done by the Heritage Foundation, but they're trying to hang it on Trump because there's some lines in it they don't like. And they talked about J6, of course. And several of them equated J6 violence to the attempted assassination on Trump. They were all, they were playing politics. They were trying to help Kamala Harris. And I really got the impression that other than one or two, they couldn't have cared less about this assassination attempt. This was all opportunity to go other directions purposefully. So that was kind of my take on the Ray deal. But there were a couple of those were really very interesting. The 8 shell casings, no recording of any of the law enforcement communication. He was very foggy. Another thing he was very foggy on was when the Secret Service sharpshooter who supposedly shot Crooks had him first in his sights. He was really foggy on that. He didn't want to get nailed down on that too. And isn't it convenient that there's no communications? Oh, well, maybe I'm just a suspicious type. I don't know. We're unfortunately not going to have enough time for you radio listeners to get into Project Enbridge. You video listeners will get into it for just a little bit here. The radio listeners, we're going to have to wind up because of the time limitations, the strict time limitations of AM radio. But you can tune into the videos and hear about Project Enbridge, which I'm going to describe very briefly, and we'll go into more detail in future shows when we don't have an attack on the Constitution and a coup, a third world, a banana republic coup going on. So Project Enbridge, first of all, BRICS Plus now has like 59 new countries that want to join BRICS. Oh, woe to us. And the former president of Brazil is now in charge of a new bank that they formed, the BRICS New Development Bank. Remember, everybody was saying, oh, you don't have to worry about them because they don't have any financial infrastructure. They're not going to have bond markets and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Here come the BRICS, folks. Here come the BRICS. And they are going to announce, it looks like now, a new currency that's going to be a 60-40 basket of fiat currency and gold-backed currency, some of which may be digital. Nobody really knows, but it's now in the works. And Not only does the BRICS New Development Bank support it, but the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, has now thrown in and said they support it. Huh? I thought America was their darling. What's going on here? And it looks like over the last several years, most gold by the East, okay, the China, BRICS, all those countries, is in the form of kilo bars, which is roughly 32.5 ounces, That's how they store their gold, kilo-sized bars. 32 ounces of gold, give or take. And all the gold kilo bars, very interestingly, over the last 12 to 18 months have been drained out of the Western COMEX, commodities exchanges, by Eastern buyers who have taken delivery. Very interesting. And there's more than a score of countries now that have demanded the repatriation of their national gold, their gold reserves, from the United States and from the UK, who have complied. Here's a really important thing, and this is called the Enbridge system. Okay, this is going to go through what's called the Enbridge Clearinghouse. It's kind of like the twin sister, unfortunately, the incompatible twin sister to the SWIFT system. I don't want to get into details, so I'm giving you really generalities, and you can kind of get the inference, even though I may not have the exact little specific financial facts in there for you. Here's the real key. The dollar is not compatible with Enbridge. It's not compatible. It won't work. You can't use the dollar in the Enbridge system. So the dollar will be out in the cold with this basket of currencies, local, gold-backed, digital, whatever, which is now quickly kind of coalescing in the BRICS countries with the help of two, one of them new, one of them existing, Bank of International Settlements, and the BRICS New Development Bank. Not great, not great. And at the same time, countries are dumping dollars. And they're dumping dollars by selling their treasury bonds and treasury notes, etc., and not buying them back. Instead, the money they're getting from selling their treasury notes, whether it's from the United States government or whether it's from some other buyer, they're turning around and buying gold for delivery, mostly in the form of kilo bars. My, what's going on? There's a lot of dots here that are starting to connect, isn't it? All right, so that's a very, very broad overview of the Enbridge system. It's much more detailed. It's much scarier, actually, than I portrayed it. We're going to talk about that in future shows. Please listen to these videos, read the articles, particularly these expert videos. Snipers, former Secret Service, the body language experts on this weird lady that was sitting behind Trump. I mean, it'll give you the heebie-jeebies watching that one. And make sure you play it back, because you can actually see her smile when that shot rings out. You can see it. Yeah. Anyway, folks, what we have here is a monumental plot, and now a monumental but faltering cover-up. And what we have to make sure is that our representatives and senators get to the bottom of this. And if Speaker Johnson, if he has the cojones, has to send the Capitol Hill police over to arrest people and haul them back to the friggin' Hooskow so they can be prosecuted, because Merrick Garland, who hasn't said a friggin' word about the attempted assassination of a leading presidential candidate and former president of the United States. Not a friggin' word out of the Justice Department. I find that rather telling. You need to stay on your people. Remember the quote from Alexander Hamilton. Okay, this is a defense, never mind Trump, never mind anybody. I'm talking about a situation. This is a direct attack on the rule of law and the Constitution. This is as treasonous and as slimy and as nasty and as premeditated as it comes. And all of you out there who are listening to me go, oh, well, you know, wow, man, he's really going out on a limb, conspiracy theory. Every conspiracy theory, quote unquote, that I have brought you for 10 years has proven to be flat 100% true. It's not a conspiracy theory. Open your eyes. Get out of the box. Think with an expanded mind. Do you think that the Democratic National Convention was being held literally a month later than normal? That's just a coincidence with the Biden stuff and the Trump stuff and the Kamala Harris stuff? You think this is all coincidence? You don't think these are just, you know, odds and ends that kind of fell into place and don't look too good? This is a huge plan. And let me tell you something else about this CrowdStrike thing when the internet came down. If you think that was a mistake, if you don't think that was a dry run, that was a practice run, that was kind of a probe, you know, then you're a fool. And you need to get on your county clerks, those county clerks that go, oh, we don't need paper ballots. Oh, these machines are fine and they're not connected to anything. And, you know, it's so much more work and blah, 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 blah. And that includes the governors of states, including Governor Gordon of Wyoming. And you need to howl, scream, and yell for paper ballots. Because, you know, if this kind of thing happened a day or two before or the day of the election, just think about the outcome, would you? But they'd never do that, would they? No. What? Shame on me. Another one of those conspiracy theories. Get on them, folks. 104 days, 103 days, whatever it is, whenever you listen to this, in whatever medium you're listening, till the election. It's your country. It's your life. It's your freedom. Keep the wind at your back. We'll talk to you next week. Or when we have an update, which will probably be before next week, the way things are going.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.